Now, the third route, and that's one which Amartya Sen in his Theories of Justice, Amartya Sen has got a book published about 2 months ago, The Idea of Justice, which I think is of enormous importance. It takes forward some of the arguments he's been offering, for example, 10 years ago in his book, Development as Freedom. And it's about the objectives of public policy. It's about what shapes well-being. It's about what constitutes an improvement. And what Amartya Sen argues in his Idea of Justice is that social contractarian view of Rousseau and Rawls and others is not a terribly good way to proceed, because what that does is to describe what a just system looks like. It describes the principle of a just system. And what Amartya is arguing, that what we need to do is to be able to identify reductions in injustice. And it may be very partial, but it may be very important. And what he's doing and suggesting in that is that the route to identification of reductions of injustice is through the capabilities of individuals. So in other words, if you expand, and it's a very broad view of what capability means, where health and education play a very powerful role, but also where society plays a very powerful role. If you expand people's possibilities in that Amartya Sen sense, then you, at least for those individuals, create an improvement, and often it's an improvement which can reasonably be described as a removal of injustice, particularly when we think of discrimination. So it's a well-articulated theory of justice, building on the kind of idea of capability that he's been working on for about 20 years. I've been working on that for a while. I often use the language of empowerment, as many others have done, and my book on that subject, Growth and Empowerment, with Dettier and Rogers, was published in 2005. But you can see that line of argument, and I could give you, I don't have the time now, but I could give you empirical examples that illustrate that, particularly from development, but they're not confined to development. Now, those ideas that I've just sketched, those approaches, 3 different approaches, one which looks at preferences, one that looks at choices, one that leaves both of them behind and looks at capabilities or empowerment, are 3 ways in which we can take that discussion of public policy in the context of unstable, inconsistent, or endogenous preferences further. And I believe it's very important, indeed urgent, that we do that as economists. Why is it urgent? Because those are already playing into public discussion. And the Conservative Party in the UK has embraced nudge. They're all gearing up for the next general election. They want to show their idea, they've got ideas and they're intellectuals and they're thinking. Well, nudge has been embraced by the Conservative Party in the UK. Some parts of the Labour Party have embraced the idea of empowerment. Most of them have already got it wrong because they think it's a zero-sum game. And as I've described, it's not a zero-sum game. You can increase the capabilities of some people without necessarily reducing the capabilities of others. So let's work on them. Let's clarify them. Let's get the theorems right. Let's work on the relevant evidence. Let's discuss values in a structured way. And I think we can have a very big and immediate influence on policy. So that's the analytical part of what I wanted to say. And just let me leave you very briefly with the key parts of the story. I have been celebrating, and I will continue to celebrate, what our subject has to offer. And I've been lamenting in some areas our significant failure to use it well. Now that's very important, because what I'm saying is we don't have to throw economics away. We just have to use it better. And of course I'm going beyond that and saying we have been creating the tools and the instruments and the ideas to use it still better in the work that we've been doing over the last 20 years, if we'll only combine it with some of the things that we have forgotten. I've tried to warn about the dangers of bending to the ideological winds. The stronger the ideological winds, the greater the obligation to make ourselves heard. Of course, the stronger the ideological winds, the more difficult it is to make yourself heard, but that goes with the greater obligation, and we have to learn, I think, to deal with it better. In dealing with it, we have to think about government failure and market failure at the same time. Both are crucial parts of the story. And I was very struck by what Jose Manuel Barroso said yesterday he expressed it in slightly more political language, but he said there are two gods that we must not serve, the God of the state and the God of the market. And that's very much what I've tried to say today, where we've got to be dealing with government failure and market failure at the same time. But I want to end on a celebratory note. When you start remembering public economics and when you start thinking about the enormous productivity of just 4 areas I've mentioned, I could mention more, and what we can do if we integrate that into careful analysis of public policy, I think we have a very strong future where we can defend and be proud of our subject, and we should do that now, and build a richer and more mature theory and practice of public policy. Thank you very much.
I think we exhausted the time exactly. I would like to announce that there is now the members' meeting of the European Economic Association. But before we go on to this, let me thank Nick for his wonderful lecture. Thank you very much. And I think we have to move on now to the members' meeting. We are glad if many of you stay to to hear about important decisions that have been taken by the association and that affect the future of our association. Thanks.